Hello and welcome to Everyday Lessons Every Day. I'm David McBee. Based on my book, Everyday Lessons Every Day, A Journey from Grumpy to Grateful, this podcast is for those of us who believe in personal growth and want to improve every day. This is episode 1, Talk in Terms of the Other Person's Interests. Since this is the very first podcast episode, I thought it made sense that today's everyday lesson come from the first self-improvement book that I ever read. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie was written way back in, believe it or not, 1936. And even though that's a lifetime ago, the lessons were still relevant when I read the book in 1993. And you know what? They are still relevant today. I was in my early 20s and was given the book by my Amway sponsor. Now, if you're older than 30, then you've probably been pitched by an Amway rep. You were maybe even invited to a barbecue where someone suddenly broke out a whiteboard and started drawing circles and dollar signs. Yep, that's how they used to recruit new members. If you're younger than that, then maybe you associate Amway with the Orlando Magic and the Amway Center. The basic premise of the business was that you sold products, mostly to yourself, and then you recruited others to buy and sell those same products. You know, the old, you recruit 3 people, and if each of them recruit 3 people, and then they recruit 3 people, then all of a sudden you'll be the leader of a sales empire. I totally bought into it at the time, and even though most people liken it to a pyramid scheme, I actually made a lot of money in network marketing. At one point, having thousands of people in my organization. Yep, and I even got commission checks in the mail every day except Sunday. But that wasn't with Amway. That was with a different network marketing company, and that success really didn't last very long. In fact, after the bankruptcy that followed, I decided that network marketing was not for me. The best thing to come out of my short Amway career was my love for reading, specifically reading self-improvement books. Not only did Amway promote the use of and sale of their products, stuff like vitamins and soaps, they also recommended that every independent distributor read a self-improvement book every single month in order to stay excited and motivated and learn the skills that they would need to succeed. How to Win Friends and Influence People was the book that changed my life. If you haven't read it, you've probably heard many of the lessons reiterated by others over the years. Tell me if any of these sound familiar. Become genuinely interested in other people. Smile. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Be a good listener. Make the other person feel important. Pretty classic lessons, right? In fact, nearly every lesson in the book is still relevant today. In preparation for today's podcast, I reread several chapters and was shocked at how true the lessons still are. Although the stories are a little dated, the ideas are spot on, and this nearly 100-year-old book is still worth the read. Today, I want to focus on the lesson that had the biggest impact on me, and here it is. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. Or said another way, talk about the things the other person likes instead of the things you care about. In the book, Mr. Carnegie talks about how guests of President Roosevelt were always impressed with his range and diversity of knowledge on various topics. The president could talk as well to a politician as he could a cowboy. So how did he do it? Well, the story goes on to explain that Roosevelt would stay up late the night before expecting a visitor, reading up on the subject in which he knew the guest was particularly interested. He knew that the way to a person's heart was to talk about the things they treasured most. It was this book, and especially this lesson, that made me realize what a self-centered ass that I must have been when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. I loved to talk about myself and my accomplishments. Like a lot of stupid guys, I would brag on myself to get girls to like me, thinking that they would be impressed that I had, been the star of a play or that I had a cool car, whatever. After learning this lesson, I found that I could talk to anyone, I didn't worry about impressing people with who I was, instead focusing on asking them questions about their family, their occupation, what they did for fun, or what they dreamed of doing in the future. These things always led to more interesting conversations, and it had the added effect of making the person I was talking to feel special. This is a lesson that I have held on to for 30 years. But rather than telling you about a time that I used it, I'm going to tell you about how I recently benefited from someone else using this lesson. My neighbor is the king of this strategy. The other day, I saw him outside with his dog, and I stopped to chat with him. I started the conversation with a generic, "How's it going?" which he politely answered with a generic, "Fine." Then he asked me how my son was doing. Tanner has a lot going on these days with a new job, a new car, a new attitude after struggling to find his way after graduating high school. And as someone who has watched Tanner grow up, my neighbor likes to hear what's going on with his life and how he's doing. And it always makes me feel good to get to brag on him, as I believe it does most parents. Then he asked about my daughter and softball and what's going on with Emily at school. 30 minutes later, we both had to get back to work, and we exchanged pleasantries and went back to our lives. When I got back to my desk, I remember thinking, damn, I have the best neighbor. It made me feel so special to know that he was so interested in my family and what we were all up to. That's when I realized that I hadn't asked him about his family or his career or his interests or really anything about his life at all. I felt like that same self-centered ass from back in my youth. He had me talking about things that were important to me, and I didn't reciprocate that friendship at all. To make matters worse, I knew from his Facebook page that he had just returned from vacation, and I didn't even ask him about it. The bad news is, I acted like a jerk. The good news is that I don't always act like that, and I very much doubt that he thinks I was a jerk. He's just got mad people skills, and I think this is important to point out. I believe he was sincerely interested in my family. That's key to this everyday lesson. If he wasn't truly interested, it would have come off as fake. And so I challenge you. Get out a Sharpie and write OPI on your wrist as a reminder for the next time you are talking with someone to talk about the other person's interests, to ask them about their family, their job, their interests, or if you're close with them, their dreams. It's always great to talk about people's dreams. Be sincere in your desire to learn about the topics that are important to them. Do these things and you'll make them feel special, I promise. Let me know what happens when you implement this everyday lesson. I'll see you next time. Now go out there and do something awesome.